For thousands of years, people have sat quietly, closed their eyes, taken a breath, and repeated a single sound. Om Aum. One syllable, one vibration. One of the oldest sounds in human history. Uttered in temples, whispered in monasteries, hummed in living rooms and yoga studios around the globe. It feels simple. Inhale, intone, exhale. But beneath that simplicity is a cascade of sensory, motor, and neural events. And modern neuroscience is beginning to map how an ancient practice alters the body and brain in ways we can measure. The world's most studied sacred sound, is far from just a religious relic. Its use is documented in the oldest layers of the Vedas, and it appears across Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain practices. Traditional interpretations read the three parts, AUM, as symbols of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, with the silence that follows pointing to pure awareness. But you don't need to accept any particular cosmology to notice what chanting does. It anchors attention, synchronizes breath and voice, and produces a steady bodily vibration that the brain can lock onto. Why nearly every meditation tradition uses sound across cultures, teachers have handed students mantras, bells, chants, and songs. There are good reasons for that universality. Sound is immediate and embodied. It recruits hearing, vocal cord movement, breath control, and even the bones of the skull. A repeated syllable gives the mind something predictable to follow, reducing the endless novelty that fuels distraction. In groups, shared chanting entrains heartbeats and breathing, dissolving social barriers and promoting feelings of connection. On the most basic level, rhythmic, repeated sound calms the most primitive parts of the brain that respond to pattern and predictability, which is precisely what meditation aims to do. Why vibration matters. Vibration is how sound becomes felt as well as heard. Chanting sends waves through air and tissue. The voice column, larynx and skull conduct low-frequency energy back into the body. This creates a feedback loop. Your throat vibrates, your ear senses the tone, and your nervous system responds to the steady input. That embodied resonance makes the practice more than intellectual. It becomes a somatic event. The physical sensation of vibration can be soothing in the same way a rocking motion or a heartbeat is soothing to an infant, and it helps the brain switch from scattered, stimulus-driven processing to a more stable, rhythmic mode. What happens in the brain? EEG studies, electroencephalography, EEG, which records the brain's electrical rhythms, is one of the clearest windows into what chanting does. Across many studies, simple mantra repetition and sustained vocalization are associated with increases in alpha band power, roughly 8 to 12 Hz, and in some cases, increases in theta power, 4-7 Hz. Alpha rhythms are often linked with relaxed wakefulness and a calmer, less reactive cortex. Theta is commonly associated with deeper inward attention, memory processing, and the borderlands between wakefulness and sleep. In short, chanting tends to shift the brain toward rhythms we associate with relaxation and inward focus. Alpha brainwaves. When alpha activity rises, sensory regions become less excitable, and the mind is less likely to be hijacked by intrusive external stimuli. Practically, that looks like a quieter mind, fewer sudden distractions, and a subjective sense of letting go. Many practitioners report that the repetitive sound makes thoughts feel like background noise rather than urgent demands, and the EEG signature lines up with those reports. Theta increases where they occur, suggest a deeper, more reflective state. Theta shows up in meditative states, in creative insight, and in memory consolidation. Chanting can open the door to that interior landscape without sending the brain into sleep, a place of revising and integrating experience more gently than the frantic, wakeful state. Reduced activity in stress networks. Functional imaging and physiological measures also point to reductions in brain circuits tied to stress and self-focused worry. Regions such as the amygdala, which flags threat and pumps out stress hormones, often show less reactivity after chanting sessions. Correspondingly, measures like heart rate, blood pressure, and subjective anxiety commonly trend downward. Repeated practice may downregulate threat responses over time, making the nervous system more resilient to everyday stressors. Enhanced relaxation states. Beyond specific brain regions, chanting promotes parasympathetic dominance, the rest and digest side of the autonomic nervous system. People often report deeper breathing, slower heart rate, and a pervasive calm that persists for minutes to hours after practice. Physiological markers like increased heart rate variability, HRV, considered a sign of greater vagal tone and flexibility than are frequently observed after vocal meditation and chanting. The vagus nerve connection, humming effect, and vocal vibration. The vagus nerve is a major highway between the brain and body, carrying signals that slow the heart, stimulate digestion, and calm inflammation. Chanting, particularly the long exhalations and the low, sustained tones of Om, stimulates structures in the throat and larynx that are innervated by vagal fibers. The vibration of the vocal cords and surrounding tissues appears to activate afferent vagal pathways, sending a message all is safe back to the brain. Parasympathetic activation. That vagal feedback promotes parasympathetic activation, slower breathing and heart rate, greater HRV, and a dampened stress response. The simple act of humming or intoning therefore feeds directly into the body's calming circuitry. This is one reason why techniques that emphasize long, soft exhalations, whether chanting, slow breathing, or prolonged sighing, tend to feel noticeably relaxing within moments. Chant. The neuroscience of repetition, why repetitive sounds calm the brain. Repetition reduces unpredictability. The brain is a prediction machine. When sensory input is steady and expected, less energy is spent on error correction and hypervigilance. A repeated mantra becomes a steady anchor for attention, reducing activity in the brain's salience and alarm circuits. The result is fewer reactive spikes in arousal and a smoother, more regulated mind. Default mode network reduction. One of the clearest neuroimaging findings in meditation research is reduced activity in the default mode network, DMN, during focused practice. The DMN is active when the mind wanders, self-reflects, or ruminates. Repetitive chanting, because it occupies attention without demanding complex cognitive control, reliably quiets the DMN. That's why mantra meditation often feels less like forcing concentration and more like replacing a noisy internal monologue with a simple rhythmic tone. Reduced rumination. With the DMN less dominant and stress networks tempered, the familiar cycle of worry and replay loses intensity. People are less likely to get stuck in negative thought loops and more likely to experience a spaciousness between thoughts. Over time, this can translate into better mood regulation, clearer thinking, and a reduced tendency to be carried away by rumination. Putting it together, chanting Om layers sensory, motor, and autonomic effects. The sound stimulates hearing and proprioception. The voice engages motor programs and vagal pathways. The repetition stabilizes attention and dampens predictive errors. The resulting brain rhythms shift toward alpha and theta, and stress circuits quiet. The net effect is a reliable path into calm, inward-focused states, experienced by practitioners for millennia and now partly explained by modern tools. Perhaps OM is not magical, perhaps it is biological. And sometimes when breath, voice, and nervous system align, biology feels indistinguishably like wonder.